Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, I just want to make sure whether my sound is already able to be heard. Is my sound clear, everybody?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Dedan. Okay, so let me begin, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us today. We warmly welcome all participants from various institutions to this international webinar organized by Universitas Sugeng Hartono. Before we begin, please kindly ensure that your microphone is mute, your internet connection is stable, and your Zoom name is clearly displayed for ease of identification during this session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Salam Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Good morning and a very warm welcome to all distinguished guests, respected leaders, lecturers, students, researchers, and participants. My name is Adi, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's webinar entitled Parkinson's Disease Tremor Prediction Using AI and Control Algorithm. It is my honor to guide you through this academic session. On behalf of Universitas Sugeng Hartono, I'd like to express our sincere appreciation to all of you for taking the time to join us today. We would like to extend a special welcome to our distinguished attendees today, which includes Director of Universitas Sugeng Hartono, Mr. Associate Professor Jacob Dedan, all the deans of the faculty of Universitas Sugeng Hartono, and all the heads of undergraduate study programs, faculty members, researchers, students, and respected guests, as well as other participants from perhaps various institutions. Thank you all for gracing this session with your presence. At this moment, let us first invite our rector, Mr. Associate Professor Jacob Dedan, to deliver his official opening remarks. Professor Dedan, the screen is now yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adi, for being an interactive moderator all the time. Special thanks to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Baki. He is a great scientist. I've known him for many years, and I believe that he will be sharing a valuable experience and knowledge to all participants. He is a leading expert in the field of AI. Also, thank you so much to the Dean for the Faculty of Technology, Law and Business, Ibu Nimas Ratnasari. Thank you, Butari, as the Head of Study Program from our Computer Science, Bu Grace from Digital Business. I hope that all students, whether it is from USH or from outside of USH, that you all will enjoy this session. I wish you all the best and see you again in our future events. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your inspiring words, Professor Deran. So, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Today, we are honored to welcome Dr. A.S.M. Bakibillah, a faculty member affiliated with the School of Engineering at Institute of Science, Tokyo, Japan, which currently lists him as specially appointed associate professor. He is actively engaged in research related to systems and control engineering, connected and automated vehicles, eco-driving, and Parkinson's disease tremor predictions. His recent scholarly work includes a 2025 publication on Parkinson's disease tremor prediction towards real-time suppressions, which make him specially well suited to speak on today's topic. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. A.S.M. Bakibillah to deliver his keynote presentation. Dr. Bakibillah, the virtual stage is now yours.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. At first, I would like to thank my friend Dr. Jacob, actually, and other faculty members and the students, actually, to joining the session. So without further delay, let's start the session, okay? Sorry, I share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. All right. Thank you. All right. Okay. So thank you everyone again. So today my presentation topic is Parkinson disease tremor prediction using AI and control algorithms, and I'm Dr. Esam Bakibilla from Science Tokyo, Japan. Before starting the main topic, I would like to briefly introduce my current research work, which can be useful for further collaboration or discussion. So I work in my lab, I work in ITS research. I mainly develop different intelligent algorithms for efficient and ecological driving on road traffic networks. And my other research areas are single cell gene regulatory networks identification or prediction using AI techniques, and the Parkinson disease tremor prediction using machine learning or deep learning techniques actually, and some control algorithms. So today our main discussion topic is Parkinson's disease tremor prediction. So first, I would explain the table of content. I would like to talk about the different the tremor definition and different types of tremors. Then the challenges regarding tremor treatment and other challenges. Then tremor research directions. Then I will talk about the experimental setup to record different types of tremor data, and I will discuss about the dataset features which are important to identify tremor or characterize tremor. Then I will talk about the tremor data processing techniques, and finally I will give a discussion on the adaptive filtering algorithms and AI or deep learning algorithms to predict Parkinson's disease tremor. And finally, I will end up with the conclusions. All right. So what is tremor basically? So in simple words, we can say that it's an unintentional or uncontrollable rhythmic movement of one part or one limb of the body, and tremor can happen anywhere in the body at any time. So basically, we can say that it's a neurological movement disorder, and it arises from a progressive dopaminergic loss or other subcortical neurons in the deep parts of the brain that controls our muscle movement. So when the signal is lost between the brain and the muscle, actually, so these types of unintentional movement occurs that we call it tremor. So if we see that what different types of tremors exist in our world, so there are mainly two types of tremors. One is pathological tremor, another one is physiological tremor, and the pathological tremor can be further classified into Parkinsonian tremor, essential tremor. And we can see that each of these classes have different frequency ranges. Like for pathological tremor, it's 3 to 20 hertz, 12 hertz. Physiological tremor is 8 to 12 hertz. For Parkinsonian, 3 to 8 hertz. And essential tremor is 4 to 12 hertz. So interesting fact is that those frequencies are overlapping with each other, and the characteristics is very similar. So it's very challenging to accurately diagnose the tremor actually from the signals, right? Because those signals are overlapping with each other. That's why it's an important topic to accurately identify tremors actually. So among these tremor types, our main interest is to work on Parkinsonian tremor. Why? Because after Alzheimer's disease, maybe you heard about it. Actually, Alzheimer's disease, many people are affected. So after Alzheimer's disease, the second most prevalent age-related neurodegenerative ailment is Parkinson tremors. So its severity is that about 20% people are affected over 60% and 3% over 75 years old, actually all over the world. Okay. So then we can discuss about the tremor treatment and challenges. So we know that when there is a disease, obviously in current medicine or medical technology, there are some treatments actually, right? Except some complex diseases like cancer. Actually. So now for the treatment of the tremor, currently different techniques are the doctors use different techniques actually, but mainly they depends on dopaminergic or anticholinergic medications and deep brain stimulations. But the problem is that the medications are often ineffective and have adverse side effects on the patients actually. So that's why it's not suggestible actually to take those medicines. On the other hand, the deep brain stimulation has significant risks and can have a high cost per patient. On the other hand, so in deep brain stimulation, that means they insert some types of cathode actually on the brain. So it's a surgical process actually to make the neurons more active actually. However, although it's expensive, but it's also very risky actually, and many patients are afraid to take those types of surgery actually in the brain. So as a potential alternative, and assistive technologies such as wearable devices recently sparked significant interest due to their promising performance. That means those rehabilitative or assistive devices have the potential to suppress tremor. Yeah. However, the tremor signals exhibits highly nonlinear stochastic and non-stationary characteristics, which substantially vary among patients. Right? So that's why it's very difficult to design such devices or predict such signals actually. Thus, for developing assistive technologies, effective or accurate prediction of Parkinson's tremor is crucial. Then we can briefly have a look at what different types of research is going on in the tremor field and what types of assistive devices has been developed. So in a very early stage, about 1998, we can see that Kotowski and Rosen discovered or developed the viscous beam type of assistive devices. So it used damping to prevent tremor about flexion and extension. I will explain this term later actually. And that achieved by a thin layer of highly viscous fluid in between two parallel plates actually, as you can see here. But the problem is that it can control tremor in only 1 degree of freedom and restricts movement about abduction adduction. So human body have different degrees of freedom, right? So if it can only suppress in one dimension or 1 degree of movement, so it's a very big limitation actually. Next, around 2007, some wearable orthosis for tremor assessment and suppression known as OTAS have been developed by Record ETL. So it was able to arrest tremor and acquire tremor. But the problem was that it was heavy actually and bulky. So which is impractical in real applications, like about 1 kg actually. So people cannot carry over those heavy equipments with the body. Actually, it's very difficult. And later, some advanced methods around 2016, some other suppression devices have been invented, known as wearable orthosis with speed control tremor suppression by Hastad and Aminon. Although it was also very good, it showed good performance actually to suppress the tremor, but the problem was it was even heavier, like 1700 gram, 1.7 kg. So it's also very impractical for real life applications. So on the other hand, there are different researches going on in the tremor field, actually, Parkinson's tremor field. So some researchers are working on the detection and classification. They mainly use signal processing or machine learning. The purpose is that, okay, so we have pathological tremor, we have physiological tremor, we have Parkinsonian tremor, we have essential tremor. How we can classify those tremor based on data, actually. People mainly use supervised learning algorithms. On the other hand, some researchers work on tremor modeling and estimation actually. So they develop different mathematical models actually to mimic the dynamics of the tremor, right? Because tremor has some dynamics actually, and try to estimate the states of the tremor actually to estimate and control those tremor. And they use different control systems or control algorithms in addition to the signal processing techniques. And some other researchers, they are working on tremor prediction using signal processing and different deep learning or machine learning based methods such as autoregressive methods or different deep learning techniques actually. So our main discussion topic today is like tremor prediction using deep learning, Fourier linear, columnar, or autoregressive different types of machine learning and deep learning techniques, rather than purely classification or state estimation. Okay, so we know that in machine learning or in deep learning field, actually, when we make any data-driven decision-making system, so the first thing comes is the data. So from where we get the data, there are some data which is publicly available, or if it is not publicly available, then we have to record the data. So in our case, we were lucky actually to have such setup, and we actually was able to record tremor data from real patients. These data are a bit scarce actually in real world, so not usually publicly available. So for tremor recording, different types of sensors are used, like accelerometer, electromyography, EMG, or gyroscope, and micro motion sensing system. So in our case, our colleagues, with the help of our colleagues, actually, we were able to record hand-arm PDT data, Parkinson tremors data, actually. And it was under some experimental protocol number, actually, because the human subject is involved in the experiment, so it has some protocol number. And we used actually attitude and heading reference system. Is called AHRS module. It's actually built in from a company in France, and it has 3 accelerometers, 3 gyroscopes, 3 magnetometers, and temperature sensors. And the output from the module, we can get the acceleration, magnetic field, and angular rate or motion. So to accurately characterize or predict tremor, angular motion or rate can be more suitable output, actually. So why we used AHRS instead of different IMUs? That means currently there are different inertial measurement units, actually, to collect data, actually, because those AHRS module, it provides the drift-free orientation and cost-effective solution than conventional IMUs, actually. You can see that in the right side figure, that a patient is involved in different types of activities, actually. In the next slide, I will explain further. Okay, so now when we collect the data, actually, so we need to identify the features, or we need to see the characteristics of the data. So what we did actually, so the upper limb was rested. So since this is a hand, as I said, actually a hand arm PDT data, actually, so the upper limb was rested on the arm for 15 seconds. So in the previous figure, you can see that there are 4 different activities, like in the C. So there is some restrict position. That means the patient is rested his hand for 15 seconds, and and then the upper limb was outstretched in front of the chest for 15 seconds. So here, like, it's outstretched for 15 seconds, and then the arm was held in wing position for 15 seconds. Here we can see that this is the wing position, and a cup was taken and water was drained before the cup was returned to the original position. And 3 further repetitions were performed. That means that one patient performed 4 different activities. What is the purpose of 4 different activities? Because we already know that the tremor characteristics is highly nonlinear, and it varies significantly among patient to patient and based on different activities. That's why we actually try to obtain data of a patient from different types of daily activities. That's why this arrangement was done. Okay, and then these are the characteristics of the patients. For example, about 32 patients involved in the modeling, actually, and the age and group years is about 69.1 plus minus 7.7, because we saw that it actually mainly affects the aged people, right? So that's why we actually consider those age-related groups, and about 50% female patients were female, actually, and they had different stages of tremor, actually. For example, like if someone has cancer, we say that stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Similarly, so for Parkinson disease, there are different severity of the disease, actually, right? And it is measured using some scale or stage called Wave and Yarn stage to give the rating of the severity of the Parkinson disease, actually. And so this is the ratio of the total subjects about the severity of the disease. And in our case, we used actually total 512 samples. And for each of the activity, like drinking, outstretching, resting, and wing, each consists of 128 samples. So what these samples actually means. So we have 32 patients. Each patients are doing 4 different activities, like drinking, outstretching, resting, and winging. And for each activity, we have 4 different types of joint angular motions or actions, actually, which are called wrist abduction, abduction, then wrist flexion, extension, then elbow punation, spunation, then elbow flexion and extension. What are these actually? Before describing this table, I think that I just briefly show what this means, actually. So in the next slide, we can show that these are different types of postures, actually. So when we talk about WAA, that means wrist abduction adduction actually. So it means this is the posture of the hand actually, and the wrist flexion extension. This is the opposite way actually. So this is the posture of the extension and flexion, and then this is the elbow pronation and exponation. So this is the elbow that when we actually rotate it actually, and elbow flexion extension means actually we stretch and extend our elbow actually. So for different types of postures actually, we have different types of joint angular motions actually, right? So that table represents these different types of actions actually. And interestingly, we can see that for different activities like drinking, outstretching, resting, and winking, the characteristics of the tremor, that means the amplitude and the frequency, significantly varies, right? For drinking, it's minus 10.7 to minus 14, whereas for the resting, it's only minus 1.62 to 1.5, and also the frequency is significantly varying. So that's why from this table, it's evident that the tremor characteristics is significantly varying based on the activities and the actions. Okay, so now we have the data actually, right? We have the raw sensor data. We already get the raw sensor data. So it looks like this, right? So the joint angular for WAA, we already see that these are different types of joint angular motions. For example, this is for the PD1 patient doing one activity, right? So this is the joint angular data, raw data for different actions actually. And this data looks very different from one action to another, although the activity is the same, like drinking. And next, what we did actually, because we know that the tremor frequency is diverse actually, like different frequency ranges actually. So we applied, normally researchers apply different types of bandpass filtering techniques to extract or to subtract the noises from the signal actually. So in this case, we applied like bandpass filter, 3 to 30 hertz bandpass filter, and obtain the joint angular displacement data from the raw sensor data. Okay, so this after filtering, the signal looks like this, and this is the tremulous motion actually. This is the tremulous motion we obtained from the raw sensor data, and then after obtaining the tremulous motion from the raw sensor data, so whenever we have the data, what we will do the data. So we have to analyze the data to obtain some characteristics which actually describe the data, right? So it's a core process, what we call pre-processing or feature engineering actually in machine learning or deep learning techniques. Then I actually applied different types of algorithms to see actually what is happening in the data. I mean, in the tremor data, filter tremor data. So first, I applied some magnitude spectrum techniques, which gives the magnitude of the tremor signal in terms of frequency. And also, I analyzed the power spectrum of the signal actually. Interestingly, we can see that when the frequency is around 7 or 8, the magnitude is peak, right? Here in the magnitude spectrum as well as the power spectrum. The dominant frequency or the peak magnitude lies within like about 0 to 8 hertz, right? So we can say that maybe this is a Parkinson disease tremor, PD tremor. It's not like physiological tremor. It's like a pathological tremor. And but it can be essential tremor, but we are still not so sure about it actually, right? But because it's just the magnitude and power spectrum. To be further sure, actually, I applied actually like some wavelet based techniques called scaleogram, and clearly see that the heat mapping actually where the tremor is occurring actually. Right, and we are analyzing the tremor signal whose frequency content changes rapidly with time. So this is the time scale and this is the frequency scale. So we can see that from it's the 10 to the power 0, that means 0 to 1 to 10. So within this range, about 8 hertz, like this high frequency signal is occurring, right? And for all these different actions, we can confirm that from these images, okay, it may be the Parkinsonian tremor occurring because it matches with the characteristics of the Parkinsonian tremor. So when we obtain the characteristics of the Parkinsonian tremor from scaleogram or wavelet-based analysis, actually, then the next step is to develop some algorithm that to estimate or to predict those tremors actually, right? Based on the characteristics or features that we obtain from the pre-processing or pre-analysis. So first, I would like to talk about one state-of-the-art algorithms for adaptive filtering algorithms known as band-limited multiple Fourier linear combiner. So there are different algorithms in these groups, like FLC. The very basic one is the Fourier linear combiner. Then people developed weighted Fourier linear combiner, band-limited multiple Fourier linear combiner. So those adaptive filtering techniques all are based on the Fourier-based techniques. That's the key point we need to remember, right? These are all Fourier-based techniques. And when it's the Fourier-based techniques, and we know that there are different components of the signal, and each of the component can be disjoint into sine and cosine simply in a very simple way, so that everyone can understand sine and cosine form of that. So I talk about the BM-FLC algorithms. So we have the modulated sinusoidal signal that we already found actually, from the raw signal to the modulated sinusoidal signal. So it goes to the BM-FLC algorithm. Then we have optimization algorithms, like different optimization algorithms we can use, like least mean square algorithm, recursive least square algorithm, or Kalman filtering techniques. We already know that. Maybe these are the optimization techniques. And then within the using these algorithms, actually LMS, RLS, or Kalman filtering techniques, it can adaptively adjust the weights of the BM-FLC algorithm to identify either voluntary motion or involuntary motions. But it's easier to identify the voluntary motion, and we have the modulating signal. If we just simply subtract it from the modulated signal, we can obtain the tremor signal. We can do it other way around actually. And this is the same diagram, but in a more detailed way. We have this for each of the frequency components. We have related sine and cosine components. So these are the weights of the signals, and those are actually optimized using those LMS, RLS, or Kalman filtering based techniques. Then we obtain the voluntary motions, subtract it from the modulated signal, and then we obtain the error actually. That means the difference between the signals actually, right? Okay, so that's the main in a simpler way. This is the main principle of adaptive filtering techniques actually. Next, we will see that what is the performance of these adaptive filtering algorithms on the tremor prediction or estimation. So we can see that as a performance of FLC algorithms. So now we will see those. The main thing is that those optimization algorithms, that how it optimizes actually to predict the tremor. So first we see that the performance of FLC algorithms for PD1, that is Parkinson disease, one patient drinking one activity. And we use the BMFLC LMS algorithm. So as you can see that for different joint angular displacements, so the signals were the raw signals actually, and this was the estimated signal actually using this LMS optimization algorithm. And for each of the cases, it looks that it can pretty good estimate the signal actually. The estimated signal is very close to the original signal or raw signal. And this is the voluntary motion, and the voluntary motion is a black dotted line, and this is the voluntary motion. This is because the voluntary motion mainly lies between 0 to 2 hertz. So this voluntary motion, the frequency is very small actually. And this is the prediction error. So after prediction, we have to identify the prediction error. And we see that the prediction error for the LMS algorithm is good, but not very good. Still, there are some spikes. That means it has some drawbacks to identify or predict the error, predict the Parkinson tremor. And then we apply like the recursive least square algorithm. So this is a powerful algorithm actually, and we see that similarly we see the performance actually, and we can see that the performance is good actually in some cases, but not for all cases. In some cases, it performs even lower than the LMS algorithm actually, right? But so overall, the prediction is quite good actually, both LMS and RLS actually. And finally, we actually apply the Kalman filtering techniques. So we can see that compared to LMS and RLS, that the LMS and RLS, the Kalman filtering techniques can predict Parkinson tremor very well. So the loss or the error is very, very low, almost zero actually. Except some of the cases, which is almost 0.00 something actually. And then we actually compare it with another baseline model called WFLC, which is called weighted Fourier linear combiner, and used the method to predict the tremor actually using WFLC technique. And then this is the performance comparison, like BMFL's adaptive filtering algorithms two different adaptive filtering algorithms and three different optimization techniques. And from all these techniques, we find that the BMFLCKF perform the best actually to predict tremor in real time. Right, so from this performance we can see actually. So this is the first stage actually. Now, since the BMFLC, that means the adaptive filtering techniques, can estimate or predict tremor pretty well, but still there are some shortcomings of the AFL, that means adaptive filtering algorithms. So the first shortcoming is that those algorithms, they operate with a predefined set of frequencies. You remember that I said that we use some bandpass filtering techniques, and then we have to define the frequencies actually, because this is, if we go to there, so each component is divided into sine and cosine, so it has some certain frequency component, and this knowledge is required actually to design these types of filtering techniques. So it operates with a predefined set of frequencies, and another problem is that the performance is poor if tremor signal has numerous dominant frequencies. So in our case, we have only one dominant frequencies. Like, what dominant frequencies means? If we go there in the characteristics, only one peak, that means only one dominant frequency. But in some cases, in some other patients, there can be some multiple dominant frequencies, right? And if that types of things happens, then the performance of these filtering techniques that I discussed, like adaptive filtering techniques, is poor. And another problem is that since this is a filter, and we know that those filtering techniques may incorporate some intrinsic temporal delay for tremor control in wearable devices, right? Because it's only, how to say this, like one step ahead prediction, those estimation techniques. So now, to overcome the shortcomings of adaptive filtering techniques, researchers are using different popular DL-based models for tremor prediction, such as deep neural networks or convolutional neural networks or long short-term memory and a dynamic temporal convolutional network actually. So these are very popular algorithms to predict tremor because these have very advanced features actually. However, what is the problem or the limitations in the existing literature actually? So those algorithms actually are mostly one step ahead prediction. And there are some algorithms, they can do multi-step prediction, but their analysis or investigation is limited only voluntary motions, and they are not generalized, right? So they don't report that how those models will perform on predicting tremulous motion, but only the voluntary motion, yeah? And also those data sets were limited. That means maybe only one type of activity is used to characterize or predict the tremor. So we cannot say it's general. We cannot guarantee that if it works for drinking activity, it will work well for some other types of activities like outstretching, resting activity, right? So they're not generalists. That's why the accurate and multi-step ahead prediction is necessary, right? And for that, we propose a self-attention deep temporal convolutional network. So this is our proposed model actually to predict the tremor. And this is the architecture of the model actually. So we can see that there is the input layer, and there's the TCN block. This is temporal convolutional network. This is the self-attention block, and this is the TCN block, and this is the dense layer actually. And then we obtain the output. And if we actually further look at it inside actually, so the the TCN layer actually consists of a dilated convolutional layer, which consists of like two LUs and causal and dilated causal convolution. And then it connects with some self-attention mechanism to extract important features, and then again another layer of TCN. And finally, we pass through it via a dense layer actually. And this is like in internal architecture, but I won't go very details in the into it. It will be very time consuming. Rather than what now we know that different machine learning or deep learning researchers, they apply different types of architectures, and incorporating some or making some modifications, it actually significantly affects the performance of deep learning algorithms, right? So now a question may come that why we choose these types of arrangement actually, why TCN here, why self-attention is necessary, why dense layer is necessary. So that's the intuition behind choosing these types of architecture actually. So that's the main focus when you choose a deep learning model or want to modify the deep learning architecture actually. So here is the key point. So TCNs, that means we know that in recent year, the convolutional neural network actually, which we call CNN, are very popular actually, and different applications people use CNNs to predict or to how to say this, like to predict data or to accurately classify data actually, and which actually opens the new dimensions for advanced convolutional networks, which are known as TCNs actually. That means temporal convolutional networks. The advantage is that they can process sequential data, which has large effective memory than recurrent neural networks. So recurrent neural networks are designed to learn sequence by sequence patterns actually. But if the data is so long, I mean long range dependencies actually, then the RNN recurrent neural networks cannot model it very well. Right, but TCNs can, and they can capture the long-range temporal dependencies. So we know that the Tremor time series data, it has long-range temporal dependencies, right? Therefore, we use TCNs to capture long-range temporal dependencies efficiently with their dilated convolutional layer, actually. So when we actually capture the temporal dependencies, but still there it is not sufficient actually. We don't know that which information are more important actually. That's why we apply self-attention to the TCN, allowing the model to further extract necessary information. For example, here we can obtain the temporal dependencies or temporal information, but this is a spatiotemporal dependencies. To model it, actually, we also need the special information or features, which can be extracted using those self-attention, actually, applying on the TCN. And it can measure the significance of data at various time steps. That means which is more significant than other. We don't need to consider all the data points. This is the purpose of the self-attention mechanism, like the transformers architecture, actually. However, after applying the TCN and self-attention, the representations that we obtain learned in different layers of a TCN may be still abstract and high level. That's why by feeding the high level representations into a dense network model here, the model can further learn complex temporal dependencies. Okay? So that's why we use like the dense layer actually. So that's the breakdown of these three different layers, like TCNs, self-attention, and dense layer. That's why we choose these types of architecture to predict the tremor. And then this was the parameter settings actually to run the training and testing. So currently we know that the popular technique is called mini batch gradient descent algorithm and Adam optimizer. Right, so we applied the same techniques, mini batch and Adam optimizer, with a learning rate of 0.0005, and the TCN employs 128 filters with a filter size of 3. The model is trained using 300 epochs with a training batch size of 32. A dilation factor of d is equal to 2 to the power n is equal to 5 is used, and causal padding is used actually. So the early stopping technique is used. We know that the early stopping technique some researchers use to reduce this for overfitting issues actually. That's why if the training performance is not improved after 10 epochs actually, then we stop the training. We don't need to take excessive time actually for the training. So that's why the early stopping technique is used. And the dropout layer was excluded. And it is not necessary to include the batch normalization and weight normalization in this process. And the pooling layer is also excluded because it may reduce the temporal resolution of features collected by convolutional layers actually from the architecture. And then we will see the performance of the proposed method actually. So this is the performance of the proposed method for drinking activity. So here, I mean, it's, as I said, that all the deep learning models perform very well. So when we overlap the prediction methods actually, it's very difficult to see actually that what's happening here. So then it's the subplot, but in the subfigure, we can see that, so this, the red one is the original tremor signal, right? And these are the performance of different deep learning techniques actually. And this is the green one, the SADTCN. The green one is performing the best compared to the conventional GNN or LSTM and CNN model actually, right? And this is the for this tremor signal, and this is the scaleogram actually. So the tremor signal lies around 8 Hz actually. So we can see that from drinking activity, the proposed method actually performing much better than the other methods. But the important factor is to know that although the other deep learning models can accurately predict it, but when the peaks arrives, when there is an abrupt peak and upper and lower peaks, actually, those models actually fail to accurately capture those dynamics. Actually, that's which actually can solve by the SAT-TCN model. And then it was like drinking activity. We see the signal pattern very high amplitude, but the frequency is low. I mean the low, and this is the pattern of the resting activity. The amplitude or the joint angular displacement is very lower than the drinking activity. However, the frequency is much higher. So the characteristics is very different between these two different activities. And even in these cases, actually, the red one is the original tremor signal, and the green one is the proposed SAT-TCN model, actually, and it performs better compared to other deep learning model. And so then we actually run the 5-step ahead prediction. So this is the result of 1-step ahead prediction. So what happens actually if we can predict 5-step ahead, 10-step ahead, 20-step ahead, something like this. So then if we can predict something 5-step ahead, then obviously if we actually use those algorithms in assistive devices, it can much early predict the tremor and can suppress it, the tremor in real time actually. So then this is the performance of the 5-step ahead prediction of the deep learning algorithms. And we can see that for drinking out, stretching, resting, and wing activity, and for different joint angular motions, the proposed SAT-TCN model actually perform much better compared to the other deep neural network or LSTM or CNN models actually, for multi-step ahead predictions actually. And this is the result of overall performance of all tested conditions. That means of all the patients we actually considered in the study. And we find that in terms of prediction error actually for different activities like drinking out, stretching, the prediction error, the average prediction error in that sense, I would say, is lower, much lower compared to the other deep learning techniques like LSTM, CNN, TNN techniques actually, right, in all the activities. Yeah. And then okay, so now we know that the proposed deep learning techniques is better compared to some other state-of-the-art deep learning techniques, but is it sufficient? It's actually improving the performance compared to other deep learning techniques, but how much it is significant? What is the significance of this result actually? And to find those significance, researchers use different types of statistical techniques like ANOVA test or some other types of statistical tests. In this case, we use like Wilcoxon signed rank statistical test predicted this test to find the scores for different activities and joint angular motions. That means how the prediction of the proposed deep learning model differs compared to other deep learning models, right? Is it significant or it's not significant, right? So in most of the cases, we obtain the p-values less than 0.01 or point less than 0.05. So it suggests that the prediction performance is significant compared to other deep learning model from this statistical test. So this prediction performance and the statistical test, we can evaluate the performance of the deep learning models if we have some other baseline models or baseline deep learning models. So now, what's the desirable features of the SAT-TCN model compared to other deep learning models actually? So first of all, it has hierarchical feature learning, right? We already see that it can extract the features in a hierarchical way. Then it has multi-step prediction and fast. And then it can enhance contextual information and reduce vanishing gradient problem, right? So these are the benefits or advantages of the proposed deep learning model actually. However, still there are scopes to do some future research. The research is always an ongoing process actually. So although it provides interpretable attention weights actually, we can interpret the attention weights to extract the significant features or information from the data. However, understanding the context, meaning, and clinical significance of the attention weights is challenging actually. That why its significance for specific information. That's a very challenging point actually from the clinical perspective, to describe it in a clinical perspective. And also the decision may not directly translated to the clinical decision making without domain level expert, because we know that this is a very sensitive information, is directly related to the human subject actually. So although now the deep learning models can accurately predict the tremor actually, however, those should be validated using some expert clinicians, right, in order to implement in a real world system or in real assistive devices actually. So these types of things are currently under investigation, and will be interesting work for future actually. Yeah. Yeah. So the work so far I described actually is been published actually last year in the computers in biology and medicine actually. Yeah. So if someone is interested, you can just have a look at the paper, because the process is described very clearly and in detail in the paper actually, how different layers are working. Yeah. So in conclusion, in conclusion, we actually discussed various adaptive filtering and deep learning algorithms are applied to predict Parkinson's tremors. We talked about the BMFLC Kalman filtering algorithms and other algorithms, but the KF algorithm gave the best result for one-step prediction among the adaptive filtering techniques for Parkinson's disease tremor prediction. The deep learning models show accurate prediction of Parkinson's disease. In particular, the proposed statistician performed the best among the deep learning models actually. Yeah, so that's the overall takeaway from this webinar actually. Yeah, and thank you for your attention. Yeah, I won't take longer. Yeah, so if you have any comments or discussion, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Bagibila, for your insightful and thought-provoking presentation. I do believe that your research is very beneficial in the field of technology in health, particularly in regards to Parkinson's tremor medication or treatments. Ladies and gentlemen, so let me wrap his lecture up in order to remind us again. We have learned that traditional adaptive filtering methods still have limitations, especially in handling complex and dynamic tremor signals. On the other hand, model AI approaches such as deep neural networks, convolutional neural networks, LSTM, and temporal convolutional networks offer more powerful ways to analyze temporal data, although they also come with challenges such as limited generalization and short-term prediction capabilities. The introduction of advanced models like self-attention deep temporal convolutional networks, abbreviated as SADTCN, shows promising improvements, particularly in capturing complex temporal dependencies and enabling more accurate multi-step predictions. This is crucial for developing more responsive and effective assistive technologies for patients. Ladies and gentlemen, we truly appreciate the valuable knowledge and perspective you have shared with us today. So we will now proceed to the question and answer sessions. If you would like to ask a question, feel free to use the chat box or the raise hand feature. You may ask your question in either English or Indonesian. If needed, everybody, I will help translate your questions for our speaker. While preparing your questions, please kindly make it concise and focused so that more participants may have the opportunity to engage in the discussions. So, are there any questions, everybody? But while we are waiting for the participants to ask their questions, may I ask you some questions, sir? Because this is completely new for me. Technically speaking, how long had you been studying, researching this kind of research, which you were interested in this?
Okay. So that's a very interesting story. So when I finished my PhD from Monash actually on intelligent transportation system, then immediately I got a postdoc offer actually from Monash to work on this project actually. And so it's been 3 years ago. So now I'm in Science Tokyo, Japan. So when I was at Monash, then I started this work actually, and during my postdoc, and I conducted this research about 2 years actually,
I
and
see.
designed these types of things. And yeah, we also did some other types of research on Parkinson disease tremor, like for example, like it's a very as we saw from the beginning in the beginning actually, that the tremors actually overlap with each other, and it's very difficult to accurately differentiate between the voluntary and involuntary motion because they overlap actually. So also as an extension, we developed some deep learning or machine learning techniques actually to accurately differentiate between voluntary and tremulous motions actually. So yeah, we working on different dimensions from the last 2 year in 2 years actually on this tremor field. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, that must be a very long duration, I would say.
Yeah.
I see.
Still, currently, I'm not actively working in this field actually because I'm working on the ITS and the single cell genomics analysis. But I work in collaboration with Monash actually on this field. So we have students. I supervise the students actually to work on this field and apply some other interesting algorithms actually too. Because I think that this is a current challenge, right? Because the medical field has limitations, as we already see from the treatment and the surgery. So in future, this is a current topic actually to address for the researchers actually. Yeah. So I still working on it, but as a passive member actually, not very active member.
I see. Sorry. Yeah, that must be very interesting.
But yeah, it's
Well,
interesting actually.
yes. So there is a questions coming from a participant by the name of Mr. Suyahman. Let me read the question out for you, sir. So he asks, what are the main barriers to integrating this technology into existing healthcare systems?
Yes, that's a very important question. And at the end of my presentation, I think I mentioned this point actually. So first of all, what would be the next step? The next step is that to apply this algorithm in a prototype actually in some wearable devices, right? To see that because sometimes with that what algorithm we develop, it may not work as expected in real world, in real scenario. That's why the next step would be to apply this algorithm in a prototype of the wearable devices. And if we see that okay, the performance is very good, and if it able to suppress the tremor in real time, then we need to further discuss with the clinical experts. Okay, because if there is something wrong actually, that it can adversely affect the patients actually. Right. So the next to incorporate in the healthcare system, we need further investigation and discussion with the clinicians or domain expert doctors actually, how to incorporate these types of technique into the healthcare system. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. So this is supposed to be very serious scrutiny as
Yes.
if there is an error that might emerge. So there might be unexpected consequence that might arise, right?
Exactly. And the important point is that, for example, we see that the prediction performance of the tremulous motion is very good. Who knows actually if it suppresses the voluntary motion? That means if you wanted to drink water, it gives some reverse torque actually in the SST devices. Then it's a chaos actually. So these types of things needs further validation and discussion actually, yes, to implement in the real world. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for the response, sir. Mr. Suyahman further gives response. So let me read it out for you, sir. In my country, I mean in Indonesia, of course, we have well-established national health insurance program called BPJS. What does it stand for? I forgot, but it's actually a national insurance. It seems that if this technology could be positioned as a rapid or early detection tool, it would be very promising. So, what are your thoughts on this, sir?
Yes, that's another very interesting question, because we know that currently telemedication or some how to say this, like because someone is suddenly ill is not always possible to find the doctor immediately. So now different countries or programs actually they're facilitating medicine system actually, right? And if your system, any type of system actually, disease system can early detect or give early warnings to those diseases, it's much better actually for life saving of the patients, depend on the diseases actually. That's very, very important actually. So for these types of system, instead of telemedications actually, it will work in real time. That means when there is a tremor occurs actually, whether the patient is resting, sleeping, or doing some activities, if it can predict in much early time, like as I said, the 5 step ahead or 10 step ahead, then your actuators, that means the device that is suppressing the tremor actually can be more how to say this, comprehensible actually. So it can much early understand that, okay, so at that time the tremor is occurring at the next 5 step, so it will be much prepared to suppress the tremor actually in real time. So that is what he mentioned actually. I agree with him that it could be a very promising technique actually to in terms of the tremor prediction or tremor suppression. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the response, sir. I hope that has answered the questions coming from Mr. Suyahman. And the next questions comes from someone by the name of Miss Nimas. So she's actually the dean of the Faculty of Law, Business, and Technology. Let me read the questions out for you, sir. Since your model uses a self-attention mechanism, can attention weights must be used as an explainability tool to show which time steps of the tremor signal are most influential in the prediction?
Yes, that's another very interesting question actually, the technical question actually. So as I said that what is the purpose of the attention layer? So the attention layer basically extracts useful information from the sequence of the data. That means which sequence is much more informative than the other sequence, right? So if I'm not sure that I should show the figure, but I think that you can remember it. So when there is a transition in the signal, right? When there's abrupt changes in the signal, when the frequency component and the amplitude component is frequency changes actually, then those information are very important to characterize the dynamics of the tremor signal. So the attentions, how to say, the self-attention mechanism actually focuses or give more attention or more emphasis to those specific transitions actually, right? Compared to other deep learning models. However, as I also mentioned about the limitation actually, although we have the interpretable attention weights, especially in the transitions of the signal, but understanding the exact meaning and the clinical significance of the attention weights is still very challenging. We are still not sure actually how those can be interpreted actually. Yeah. So hope this answers her question actually.
Yes, thank you very much, sir, for the response. I hope that covers the questions coming from Ms. Nimas. And the next questions comes from participants by the name of Miss Dwi Utari Iswa Vigda. So she is actually the head of informatic undergraduate programs. Let me read out the question, sir. So what are the main challenges in introducing noise in tremor sensor data?
Yes. Okay. That's another very interesting question actually. So I go back to the slide where I discussed about AHRS module, right? AHRS module. So we know that there can be different types of disturbances on noises, measurement noise, environmental noise, different types of noises actually can how to say this, like impose or can distort the signal actually. But in the AHRS module actually, it depends on the sensors. If you have normal IM use, it may not have different types of filters actually, like low pass, band pass filter, low pass or high pass filters actually to reduce those noises actually. But if you have the AHRS module, like it has a built-in filters actually to reduce those noises actually. But in general term, if we have the raw signal and if it is already distorted with some sorts of noises actually, the main challenge is to accurately understand that what types of noise, it's a very low frequency noise or it is a high frequency noise. So based on the characteristics of the noise, we can apply different types of filtering techniques. For example, in our case, we applied the band pass filtering techniques to this one. So the first the challenge is that here is that what types of filtering techniques we will apply to reduce the noise from the signal. So, yeah, in short, actually. Yeah. However, I would like to mention another point. However, if the characteristics of the noise is not known correctly, then if you apply some different types of filter, it can also eliminate or remove some desired frequencies as well. Right. So that's why this is the challenges to accurately characterize the noise and then use the filter to suppress or to eliminate those noises.
Thank you very much for the explanation, sir. So I hope that answers the questions from Ms. Dwi Utari Iswa Vigra. Are there any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? So there is time for you to prepare for any questions. And again, I want to mention again that it is absolutely fine for any of you who wants to ask a question in Indonesian language. So I'll try my best to translate that into English. So I think there is no other question, sir. And it also means that we are now approaching the end of our webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, to confirm your attendance, please complete the attendance form available via the link in the Zoom chat. Kindly ensure the form is submitted before the session concludes in order to recognize your active participation in this international academic event. On behalf of Universitas Sugeng Hartono, I'd like to express our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. A.S.M. Bakibila for generously sharing his expertise and inspiring insights with us today. We also extend our sincere appreciation to all participants for your presence, attention, and active participations. As a token of appreciation for his time and contribution, Universitas Sugeng Hartono is pleased to present a symbolic e-certificate of appreciation to Dr. A.S.M. Bagibila.
Thank you.
You're most welcome, sir. So that's the certificate that you will get.
All right.
So before we close, let us take a group screenshot together. Please kindly turn on your camera if possible. So I give you time in order to prepare for this. All right, everybody, buckle up. On the count of three, 1, 2, 3, smile. Again. 1, 2, 3, smile. So still one more time, or is it enough? Enough? Okay. All right, thank you. Once again, thank you very much for joining us today. So let me close this webinar, everybody. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Salam Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Have a wonderful everybody and see you in our next academic event.
Thank you very much, all.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a great day.
Dr. Waki.
You're most welcome, sir.
All the success in life. Yeah. Bye-bye.